Writing a THPO application section by section, a presentation recorded by the Tribal Historic Preservation Program, May 2018. My name is Jamie Lee Marks, and I am the Program Manager for the Tribal Historic Preservation Program at the National Park Service. Our office is primarily responsible for certifying new Tribal Historic Preservation offices, entering into agreements with Tribal Historic Preservation offices, and monitoring those agreements. You can reach me anytime at THPO_program@nps.gov or Jamie_Lee_Marks@nps.gov. My office number is 202-354-6463. This presentation will do four things. First, it provides a detailed account of what is necessary in each section of the THPO application. It also provides further reading for each section to support the drafting of an application. The presentation responds to frequently asked questions about each THPO function. It also provides a reference tool for individuals drafting an application. This is a lengthy presentation. We do not expect viewers to watch the presentation all in one sitting, but to refer to the video if and when they need technical assistance or advice with their application. We recommend bookmarking this presentation so you can go right to the specific sections that you need while writing your application. The audience for this presentation consists of individuals currently working on a THPO application who are seeking technical assistance. Thus, this presentation will not give a general overview of the THPO application process and its benefits, or discuss general timelines. Please review the training video, THPO Application Process and Timelines Overview, for broader information about entering into a THPO agreement. The current THPO application can be found at www.nps.gov/articles/THPP-apps-apps.htm. You can also request the application anytime via email at THPO_program@nps.gov. THPO applications have three general components: a cover sheet, a tribal resolution that establishes a THPO program and designates a THPO by name, and a program plan that is written in two parts. The first part of the program plan contains details about general program administration. The second part of the program plan details how your THPO program will perform the historic preservation duties the tribe wants to take on. The rest of this presentation goes through these sections one by one. The first component of the THPO application is the cover sheet. The cover sheet asks you for contact information, the legal name and address of the tribe or pueblo that is applying, and gives an overview of required documentation. This page is the only part of the application that is a form. The rest of the application can be submitted in the format preferred by the applicant. Each application looks a bit different from other applications. Our program can provide you with examples upon request that we have been authorized to share by former applicants. The application cover sheet contains a checklist of each part of the application needed to submit a complete application. Each of those components will be discussed in this presentation. The second component of the application is a tribal resolution and the official designation of a THPO. The tribe's official request to assume historic preservation functions on tribal lands must be a written resolution adopted and signed on behalf of the tribe's chief governing authority. The resolution must clearly indicate the governing authority's intent to assume THPO functions pursuant to 54 U.S.C. 302-701, which is commonly known as Section 101D of the National Historic Preservation Act. If the resolution included also designates by name an individual as the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, no further information is necessary. If the resolution does not designate the THPO by name, the tribe must include separate documentation of the designation of a THPO. That designation may be done through tribal resolution, or it may be by tribal ordinance. Where the tribal ordinance specifies that a certain position, such as the Cultural Resources Department Manager within a tribal government, shall serve as THPO, the tribe should include both a copy of the ordinance and the name of the individual currently holding the designated position. In the case the tribe wishes to delay the permanent appointment of a THPO until after the proposal has been approved by the National Park Service, the tribe must designate an acting THPO to serve as the THPO and point of contact for the program until the permanent appointment has been made. This person should be listed as interim or acting THPO. The selection criteria for a THPO are completely at the discretion of the tribal governing authority. The tribe may establish whatever qualifications for the position that best suit the tribe's needs. Once an agreement is entered into, tribal leadership can appoint a new THPO at any time, but must notify the National Park Service via an official letter that a new THPO has been appointed. The third part of the application is the program plan. The program plan is the bulk of the application and itself has two main components. The first section of the program plan provides background on where geographically the applicant would like to take on historic preservation responsibilities and how, generally, their THPO program will be staffed and managed. The second section of the program plan discusses how historic preservation functions will be carried out by the applicant. Let's discuss the components of the program administration section. The first part of this section involves describing and documenting tribal lands. In the NHPA, or 54 USC, tribal lands are defined as all land within the exterior boundaries of a reservation, plus any additional land held in trust outside of those boundaries. The application asks for a map of tribal lands and a specific number of acres that meet this description. Additionally, BIA documentation or confirmation of the acreage detailed in the application is needed. The second part of this section is a description of program staff or consultants. Each THPO program is required to demonstrate access to qualified professionals through staffing or contracting arrangements. Those professionals include an archaeologist, a historian, and an architectural historian. There are several frequently asked questions about this section. The first is, what does qualified mean? A qualified professional for the purposes of this application must meet the Secretary of the Interior's professional qualification standards. These can be found in our application packet or at the following website listed on the presentation. The second frequently asked question is, how can we demonstrate access to qualified professionals? Applicants should name the individuals with whom they intend to work or already work. We recommend including either letters of support or resumes to help external reviewers easily come to the conclusion that the consultants you work with are qualified professionals. Another question we frequently receive is, can one person be counted as more than one category of qualified professional? Absolutely. If an individual qualifies as both a historian and as an archaeologist, or for more than one category in general, you can list that person for both categories. Additionally, if your THPO is qualified in one or more of the specializations required by the program plan, state that in the application and include a description of qualifications and/or a CV or resume in your application. Another question we receive frequently is, we don't have one of these categories of professionals on staff. What do we do? All our application asks for you to do is demonstrate access to a qualified professional in these fields. Sharing future consulting arrangements is sufficient for the purposes of the application. The third part of the program administration section is a description of the advisory review board that will provide advice to the THPO and how that board will be constituted. The advisory review board can be called by any name that the tribe sees fit. An advisory review board performs a specific review function in the National Register nomination process. It also provides advice to the THPO on the direction and priorities of the THPO program. Regulations for states require that a majority of the members of the State Review Board be individuals who meet the Secretary's professional standards. Similar to the amended staffing requirements, these requirements are modified for tribes. While the Tribes Review Board membership does not need to meet the professional standards, the Review Board must consist of individuals knowledgeable and interested in historic preservation, and/or tribal culture so that the board can offer meaningful advice to the THPO. When the board is formally reviewing a National Register nomination, the THPO must ensure that the board has the benefit of advice from an individual who meets the professional standards in the professions appropriate to the resource under consideration. How the Advisory Review Board is established and appointed is at the discretion of the tribe. The THPO may establish and appoint the board unless the tribe's governing authority provides for some other method. The method for establishing an Advisory Review Board should be described in the application. The fourth component of program administration is the provision for participation by three categories of individuals: tribal cultural authorities, representatives of other tribes or pueblos, and the interested public. Your plan must include a section that discusses participation. The first requirement is a discussion of the participation of tribal cultural authorities. Your community is the best judge of the appropriate participation of your tribal cultural authorities in the THPO program. Whether through representation on your advisory review board, or through participation at the staff level, or through some other arrangement that reflects the tribe's needs, your plan must describe how the THPO program will have the benefit of advice from the tribe's traditional cultural authorities. Within the tribal lands for which the tribe proposes to assume historic preservation functions, these functions may involve the traditional lands of one or more other tribes or pueblos. The applicant's THPO program must provide for the participation of representatives of these other tribes in a way that ensures that the THPO is aware of and considers their concerns for properties that are significant to them. The plan must include an affirmation that the THPO will provide notice to and consider comments from other tribes that may have an interest in an undertaking on tribal lands before decisions are made pursuant to that undertaking. Please include a list of other tribes that have traditional lands within your tribal lands or with whom you anticipate consulting on a regular basis. This helps the National Park Service send your application out to review to the appropriate individuals. The third group that must be addressed in the participation section is the interested public. Appropriate participation in the THPO program by the interested public means that, at a minimum of at least once a year, the THPO solicits and considers comments from the interested public on the goals, priorities, and activities of your THPO program. Whether the THPO fulfills this requirement by soliciting written comments, by holding a public meeting, or by some other means is completely at the discretion of the THPO. The THPO should use the tribal government's usual and accepted methods for notifying the community of opportunities to comment on matters under consideration. The final component of the program administration section is an acknowledgement that comes from the National Historic Preservation Act, or 54 U.S.C. 302703. This acknowledgement is typically copied verbatim into the applications as an affirmation that the applicant is aware that this provision exists. It reads, non-tribal property owners within the boundaries of tribal lands may request participation by the SHPO in addition to the THPO in any decisions pursuant to 54 U.S.C., the NHPA, that affect that property. Frequently asked questions. There are no property owners who are not tribal members on tribal lands. Do we need to include this? Yes, this affirmation is required in all program plans. The final half of the program plan discusses how historic preservation functions will be carried out by the applicant. In this section, you will detail which historic preservation activities you will take on and how you will perform them. This section requires a clear list of responsibilities taken on and those that will remain with the SHPO. Once you list the responsibilities you would like to take on, you will detail how each responsibility will be performed. These descriptions must conform to existing preservation laws and guidance. This section is typically the bulk of a THPO application. Our application guidance and this section-by-section presentation provide a discussion of frequently asked questions about each responsibility. The first function that can be taken on is the survey and inventory function. In cooperation with federal and state agencies, local governments, and private organizations and individuals, direct and conduct a comprehensive survey of historic properties on tribal land and maintain inventories of such properties. This responsibility has been taken on by each THPO with an agreement with the National Park Service. This section should describe a comprehensive plan for locating and identifying historic properties on tribal lands and general information about how inventories will be maintained. We recommend using and citing the Secretary of the Interior's standards for the identification and evaluation of historic properties. We've included links to both on this PowerPoint and in our application guidance. The second function tribes can assume is the National Register function. Assumption of this responsibility is separate and distinct from maintaining a tribal register of properties of significance to the tribe. For example, if a tribe assumes the responsibility for nominating properties to the National Register of Historic Places, the tribe must follow the National Register's nomination procedures, and it must use the National Register's evaluation criteria to assess the significance of the property being nominated. Those procedures and evaluation criteria are specified in the regulations encoded at 36 CFR 60.4 to 60.12. If the tribe is proposing to assume responsibility for National Register nominations, the program's plan should describe how the tribe will carry out that function and should demonstrate familiarity with those regulations. It should also demonstrate that the tribe's process will be consistent with the requirements in those regulations. We recommend citing them in your program plan and have provided links in this presentation and in the application guidance. If the tribe proposes to establish and maintain its own tribal register, either instead of or addition to nominating properties to the National Register, the tribe may establish whatever procedures and evaluation criteria best meet the tribe's needs. If the tribe chooses only to establish and maintain a tribal register, then the responsibility for nominating properties to the National Register will remain with the THPO. The third historic preservation function that THPOs can assume is the preparation and implementation of a comprehensive preservation plan on tribal lands. This responsibility has also been taken on by each THPO with an agreement with the National Park Service. In this section, applicants should discuss how they will plan and undertake preservation planning on tribal lands. Historic preservation plans should provide guidance for effective decision-making about historic property and site preservation on tribal lands. In general, those plans should ensure that significant and meaningful public participation occurs during the planning process and that the final plan identifies significant issues affecting historic resources, proposes realistic solutions to those issues, and sets priorities for preservation during the life cycle of that plan. There are several resources available to assist you with the drafting of this section. The first is the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Preservation Planning. The second is National Register Bulletin Number 24, Guidelines for Local Surveys, a Basis for Preservation Planning. Information on how this work is currently being done by state historic preservation offices can be found at the following Park Service website. The fourth responsibility is to administer the tribal program of federal assistance for historic preservation on tribal lands. This function refers to the management of any federal funds it receives for its own historic preservation program. The section should discuss how historic preservation funds will be administered by the tribe and confirm that funds will be administered according to the NHPA as well as 2 CFR Section 200 and any related guidance from the Secretary of the Interior and the National Park Service. In order to be eligible to apply for historic preservation funds for THPOs, this function must be taken on. The fifth responsibility is to advise and assist as appropriate federal and state agencies and local governments in carrying out their historic preservation responsibilities. This section of the plan should discuss what the THPO will do to advise and assist federal and state entities and local governments in carrying out their historic preservation duties. Some questions typically addressed in this section include, how will the THPO generally participate in the Section 106 review process? How will the THPO participate in National Register nominations made by these entities? And how will the THPO participate in historic preservation planning by these entities? Function 6 is closely related to Function 5. This function, however, asks that the THPO cooperate with other entities to ensure that historic properties are taken into consideration at all levels of planning and development. Like Function 5, Function 6 is generally assumed. In discussing this function, discuss how the THPO will be a part of ensuring that historic properties are taken into consideration at the tribe and at the state, local, and federal level. This section asks how the THPO will be a part of a broader network of preservation partners working toward the goal of ensuring historic properties are considered in planning and development. Section 106 review activities, participation in preservation planning activities, National Register nominations and reviews, and key partnerships are typically discussed in this section. The seventh function THPOs can assume is to provide public information, education and training, and technical assistance in historic preservation. In this section, it is important not just to state that the THPO will provide public information and training, but to provide details on how the THPO will do that. Some topics that are typically discussed in this section include public outreach through events, museums, festivals, etc., the participation of the THPO in events, conferences, or educational initiatives, how the THPO will provide training in historic preservation and information about the tribe's history and culture. If applicable, applicants typically discuss participation in a museum context or in the training of tribal monitors. The eighth function THPOs can assume is what we here at NPS call the Certified Local Government or CLG function. In this function, THPOs cooperate to develop certified local government historic preservation programs. While a tribe may apply to assume this function, the function is limited in scope to local governments that are physically within a tribe's reservation boundaries or on trust land. If you are an applicant with political subdivisions of the tribe that exist on tribal lands, this function might be relevant to your program plan. Certifying a local government to participate in the national program includes eligibility for funding. THPOs would be required to set aside a minimum of 10% of the funding they receive from the National Park Service and to pass those funds on to certified local governments under their jurisdiction if they choose to take on this function. An application to assume this function should include details on political subdivisions within the tribe's jurisdiction and on tribal lands, and discuss how the tribe would assist in the development, certification, and support of local historic preservation programs in these political subdivisions. The following website is the NPS site where you can download more information: www.nps.gov/CLG. Function 9 is generally referred to as the Section 106 function, to consult with appropriate federal agencies in accordance with this section on federal undertakings that may affect historic property and the content and sufficiency of any plans developed to protect, manage, or reduce or mitigate harm to that property. It is separate and distinct from any review function that the tribe may be carrying out pursuant to its own tribal authority. If the tribe assumes the responsibility for commenting on the possible effects of proposed federal undertakings, the tribe must carry out that responsibility in accordance with the regulations of the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. The description in the tribe's program plan of how it will carry out this function must demonstrate that the tribe is familiar with the provisions of those regulations encoded at 36 CFR 800, and that the tribe will carry out the function in a manner that is consistent with that regulation. If taken on, the THPO rather than the SHPO would be a primary signatory and consulting party on Section 106 agreements regarding undertakings on tribal lands. Of course, THPOs would retain rights that tribes already have under Section 106 to consult on undertakings of interest to the tribe off of tribal lands as defined in the NHPA. The section of the application only refers to Section 106 review responsibilities. If the tribe has adopted an ordinance requiring tribal approval and a permit for activities on tribal land that may affect historic or cultural resources, the terms of that ordinance are set out by the tribe to meet its own needs. The two processes are separate and do not substitute for one another. There are several frequently asked questions about this section. The first is, how should I organize it? While it is up to you how you would like to structure your program plan, we recommend following the steps of the Section 106 process shared by the ACHP. The first step is the initiation of the Section 106 process by a federal agency. The second is the identification of historic properties. Third is assess adverse effects, and 4 is resolve adverse effects. In discussing each section of this process, it is important to be clear about what the role of the THPO will be in each stage. The second question is, does the ACHP review this section of the application? Yes. Once the application has been deemed complete by the National Park Service Tribal Historic Preservation Program, the ACHP is one of our external review partners. They are invited to review all parts of a completed application and to provide comment. Another question we frequently get is, in discussing consultation in this section, am I discussing broader consultation or just Section 106 consultation? In this section, all discussion of consultation should refer to the ACHP's definitions of the goals of consultation in a Section 106 context. Broader government-to-government consultation discussion falls outside of the scope of this section of the application. We recommend using the definition of consultation present in 36 CFR 16F. Consultation means the process of seeking, discussing, and considering the views of other participants, and where feasible, seeking agreement with them regarding matters arising in the Section 106 process. Function 10 is referred to informally as the Tax Act function, to advise and assist in the evaluation of proposals for rehabilitation projects that may qualify for federal assistance. This function stems from a provision of federal law that allows the owner of an income-producing building listed on the National Register to claim a federal income tax credit for a portion of the expenses incurred to rehabilitate that building in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. If the tribe assumes this THPO function, it will be called on to review architectural plans and specifications and to work with building owners to ensure that their projects are consistent with the rehabilitation standards. The tribe will be responsible for making a recommendation to the National Park Service as to whether the project meets the rehabilitation standards. The regulations that guide the administration of this function are found at 36 CFR 67, Historic Preservation Certifications under the Internal Revenue Code. Those regulations are linked here on this slide. If the tribe chooses to assume this function, the description of how the tribe will carry it out must show that the tribe is familiar with the provisions of these regulations and that the tribe will carry out the function in a manner consistent with these regulations. Additionally, the application's discussion of qualified professionals must describe access to somebody qualified to review plans and specifications for compliance with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. The following URL provides a link to the NPS Technical Preservation Services website for more information. Once the tribe has described the functions the tribe would like to take on and how those functions will be performed, the final component of the application is a discussion of the activities that the tribe has already participated in that relate to the functions the THPO wants to assume. Although this section can be organized however the tribe sees fit, it might be useful to use the historic preservation functions the tribe would like to take on in their agreement as an organizational device. Some things discussed in this section typically include: how has the tribe participated in Section 106 consultations or reviews already? How has the tribe partnered with other entities to preserve and protect historic places and properties? What types of public educational initiatives have the tribe been a part of that relate to historic preservation? Has the tribe been involved in National Register nominations or reviews? I'd like to address some frequently asked questions about THPO functions. Which functions are typically assumed? Most applicants take on all functions except for 8, certifying local governments, and 10, the Tax Act functions. The rest of the functions have an assumption rate of over 90%, with the exception of nominating properties to the National Register. Only 89% of current THPOs have assumed that responsibility. 2. Can I add functions later? Yes. An applicant can add functions later if they would like to by requesting an amendment to their memorandum of agreement. That process would follow the guidelines explained here, with the tribe submitting an application addendum and the NPS reviewing that addendum. Once the National Park Service agrees the addendum is complete, an updated agreement would be sent to tribal leadership for signature. 3. Can I remove functions? Yes. A THPO can request an amendment to their memorandum of agreement at any time. Removing a function would not require more than a request to remove the function by tribal leadership. The National Park Service would draft an updated agreement without that function to be sent to tribal leadership for signature. Thanks for sticking with me. This has been a section-by-section overview of the THPO application requirements. For a broader discussion of the NPS review of THPO applications and general timelines for that process, as well as benefits of entering into a THPO memorandum of agreement with the National Park Service, please view our training video, THPO Application Process and Timeline Overview. We would be thrilled to help you during the process of applying to the THPO program. To start the process, please reach out to the Tribal Historic Preservation Program at THPO_program@nps.gov or directly to me, Jamie Lee Marks at jamie_lee_marks@nps.gov. Thank you for watching. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or comments.